The following program is a presentation of BaseNet Internet Television, bringing you topics in the way mainstream media won't. BaseNet Internet Television presents As We See It with Fred Boaz and friends. In Los Angeles, I'm Gene White. And now, to our studios in Boston.
Thank you, Gene, and welcome to show number 17 of As We See It, being recorded on Sunday, November 13th, 2011. I'm Ed Jupin in Boston, as Gene said, and coming along right now, we have Fred Boaz in the Pocono Mountain studios of BaseNet and Holly Hurley out there in St. Louis. Good afternoon, guys.
Good afternoon.
So what are we jumping right into? I would imagine you probably want to talk about Rick Perry, but I would assume Joe Paterno and Penn State is first.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think we should probably talk about Joe Paterno, and then one of these stories Fred wanted to cover, and then
we'll just stretch. Sounds good. So what do you have there, Fred?
Okay, well, like everybody said, Joe Paterno is in a lot of trouble because he didn't report an abuse scandal coming through, and the guy.
Why don't you, as much as either of you can, there are some people that tend to live under rocks occasionally, and even though they would have heard about this story since it's huge worldwide news, maybe you could kind of set it up as to, how did Joe Paterno and the president of the school end up being fired? How did this whole scandal start, more or less?
Well, essentially, the man in question is actually not Paterno himself. It's an assistant coach by the name of Jerry Sandusky. And on November 4th, a grand jury indicted him for 40, count them 40, counts of sex crimes against young boys. This came after a 3-year investigation. Essentially, it started with one 15-year-old boy who came forward after 4 years of abuse that began when he was 10 years old. And basically, it came to light during the investigation that Paterno actually had knowledge of what Sandusky was doing and actually didn't do anything. I mean, it's pretty upsetting, and apparently this guy had a huge history of this. Charges were brought against him in 2005, and the DA that was prosecuting him turned up dead, and eventually they found Sandusky's laptop dumped in a river with all the evidence on it completely destroyed. And just to give you an idea of how completely full circle and messed up this story is, this guy's biography was called Touched.
Oh, how convenient.
I kid you not. I can send you I actually did.
Yeah, you can't make that up.
Yeah.
The thing that bothers me about this, and I think we have a clip for this, that a lot of people at Penn State are pissed off. So, Ed, why don't you give us a clip on this? We'll get that taken care of, and we'll see what goes on.
Coach Joe Paterno fired, the university president fired, all for their role in the child abuse scandal there, and you saw the emotions explode.
It was really a wild night. It all started after students here learned that Joe Paterno had been fired and that it had happened over the phone, not even a face-to-face meeting. The response was ferocious. The news touched off a protest that went very wrong, with special wrath reserved for the media. When the country looks at this, you're out here protesting this way.
Why are we protesting? We know. Listen, what about the victims? Why is the news all about Joe Paterno and not the kids? It's the media who singled out Joe Paterno. The media never talked about the kids. They made him look like the freaking villain. True. You call him a legend, treat him like a legend.
Do you think he'd want you to be doing this, though?
No.
Light posts came down, and then police with riot gear moved in, and they kept on using it during several hours of running street battles. The moment that sparked this fire, this late-night news conference where the Penn State Board of Trustees made an announcement that drew a gasp.
Joe Paterno is no longer the head football coach, effective immediately.
Joe Paterno, the 84-year-old beloved head coach of the Nittany Lions, gone, taken down in a scandal involving alleged child sex abuse carried out by a former top coach. How difficult was this decision for you guys?
Of course, anything like this is difficult.
And like I said, these guys are angry about the fact that they fired Paterno. They're pissed off at the university for firing this guy when he knew about it. And it boggles the mind how these people can say, well, he was a coach. I mean, come on, the guy.
Yeah, well, we heard in that clip at the end of the clip that one interviewee who said, he's blaming it on the media, saying the media is out to crucify Joe Paterno. He says, but yet the media is calling him, this beloved coach. He said, well, is he a beloved coach, or are you going to crucify him?
Well, you can actually do both. He's a beloved coach and needs to get crucified because he knew about it, he didn't stop it, he didn't report it, and now he's out of a job. And I say good riddance personally.
I honestly, from living in Pennsylvania myself and all, for a number of years, I had always felt that he should have retired literally about 10 years ago now. He is 84 years old, and I was still in Pennsylvania at the time that he was about 74 years old. And I remember at that time, 10 years ago, thinking, it's time for this guy to retire. I'm so surprised he hung on another 10 years as it is.
Well, and according to the indictment, in 2002, the assistant coach, Mike McQuarrie, actually walked in on Sandusky basically in process of one of these abuses and informed Paterno, who then informed Curley. So that's why both of them are now being held responsible, because apparently they did report it to the president of the school, who then reported it to the authorities. So basically the argument that the kids at Penn State are saying is, hey, he did what he was supposed to do. He did the bare minimum, and basically the order was then that this guy not bring any of these children into the football building. That was what they did. And so, whether or not he really did all he could do is upsetting. I understand why people are arguing for him, but I just think at the end of the day, you have to think of the families of those kids. And I just...
And in a couple of sound bites that I heard from Joe Paterno, he did say that he now, in retrospect, wished that he had done more at the time.
Oh, sure, now that he's losing his job. I mean, I'm not saying that this was not a complex situation, but there is, to a certain extent, right or wrong, and this guy did remain on the staff, and that's kind of upsetting.
Now, this is not the first time that something like this has happened in Pennsylvania, because an article in today's Pocono Record written by a guy named Dan Barrett said that allegations of sexual impropriety by a well-respected figure at the university swirled for years. Well, this is at East Stroudsburg University. That the same pattern has alleged to have happened, taken place in East Stroudsburg University, where a scandal erupted in 2009 through different, although with different details and results. But the idea, this isn't the first time this has happened. And if you go to the website for the Pocono Record, you can pick up on an article. It's about 3.5 pages.
So basically, you're saying that this isn't something unique, obviously, to Penn State. This is something that's more than likely going on.
And I believe if we have it, we have a clip. Well, not a clip, but there's an article that they've talked about. The Pennsylvania Governor Tom Corbett, who was the Attorney General at the time that these incidents took place, was Attorney General time, and he's rallying for new laws to be enacted, at least in Pennsylvania, requiring and making it a crime not to report something like this if it happens. So maybe at least that'll take care of something for the future. But I'm surprised he didn't take care of it as Attorney General. Why he's waiting until he's governor to take care of it? But that's another issue in itself.
Well, I think it's important that the law has changed, and I think it's unfortunate that something of this scale and magnitude had to happen in order to get that law changed. But I'm just really thankful that it's being changed.
So on a different note, where do you guys see this going from here? Obviously, as Holly said, this assistant coach was indicted on 41 different counts or something. Do we see the school, this now former president, this now former head coach, also being indicted potentially?
Probably we're up, but this is going to court. This is going to be going all the way to the state Supreme Court, if not the federal courts. And we're going to see lawsuits against Penn State, lawsuits against the team, lawsuits against the individuals themselves. I mean, these people's lives, the kids' lives are ruined, the coaches and assistant coaches' lives are ruined. Penn State, just like East Stroudsburg University, is going to be sued for hundreds of millions of dollars.
And to add insult to injury, this guy had 6 foster children. I mean, this is children.
They at Penn State, the article I have here says a Penn State, Pennsylvania Attorney General Lisa Kelly filed charges last week against Jerry Sandusky, the former defensive coordinator. Sandusky is a sexual predator, Kelly said, who allegedly used a charity, the Second Mile, to lure and have sex with 8 boys who were between 10 and 12. Based on a grand jury investigation, Sandusky faces 40 charges, including involuntary deviant sexual intercourse and unlawful contact with a minor. Penn State's athletic director and its senior vice president of finance and operations, who oversees campus police, were each charged with lying to the grand jury and failing to report suspected child abuse. These people are done.
Yeah, I mean,
So.
he's married. He has 6 adopted children, 4 foster children, and his house is next to an elementary school playground. I mean, yeah, guys is toast. And the truth of the matter is, it's like you said, you know, Fred, I mean, if I've learned, and like Ed said, we're not lawyers, but if I've learned anything from watching Law and Order, once a case gets to, once a case gets to this level, the nth degree of prosecution is typically inevitable because they just cannot. I mean, you're talking about DAs just cannot keep their positions if they don't prosecute people like this to the full extent of the law.
But they also have to be very careful because just like in several high-profile cases that we've seen in the past, they have to make sure that they can prove their case. Because it ain't what you know, it ain't what you think, it's what you can prove. And in a criminal case, it's beyond a reasonable doubt. And that's much we do learn from Law and Order and all these law shows and stuff that are on there. These guys are toast if they get convicted, and if somebody doesn't screw this up, these guys can walk. So you got to be careful.
All right, so I guess that's how we see it with the Penn State matter. We'll do a little housekeeping while we take a little break here. We would like to remind everybody on where you could find us. You could email us at info@basenetintermedia.com.
Well, if they're listening to us, they've already found us, haven't they?
That's true, and since we don't get any emails anyway, that's why I just want to keep drilling this email into their psyche, because as we said a couple weeks ago, we are flying by the seat of our pants here in doing this show. We're not really getting the kind of input that we'd like from our listeners. And we do have a relatively large listener base now, but nobody is commenting for good or bad. And we would like to know what you folks like or don't like about the show, or any suggestions you have as to how we could reformat the show if any kind of reformat is necessary. So please drop us a line at info@basenetintermedia.com with your comments and suggestions. And also, you can follow us on social media. At Facebook, we are BaseNet. At Twitter, we are BaseNet TV. And we are now, finally, a branded page on Google+. You could find us on Google+ as BaseNet Internet Television. I guess that's about it for our housekeeping. So, Fred and Holly, turn to politics?
Okay.
I mean, I was going to say, since we were changing laws in Pennsylvania, that maybe Fred could tell us a little bit about what's going on in his hometown.
Not much.
Maybe we should save that story for later.
Yeah, well, we can go on with that if you want to, but it's a funny story. Actually, what's coming out of it's out of Phoenix, Arizona. Believe it or not, the story that I had.
Wow.
But this comes from a private website called Private Officers International, which is
it's not private anymore.
Oh, it's a member site, and it's regarding for security officers, but it's breaking news from them that says teens using vodka-soaked tampons to get a quicker high, and these people have got to be kidding me. I mean, I've done some stupid stuff in my drinking days, and Ed, you can attest to that. But vodka-soaked tampons, I mean, that's got to be, not only is it stupid, that's got to be dangerous.
Well, it's just, I don't know why. I mean, it's just a cotton swab for less of anything else. But I guess this is the 21st century version of Jell-O shots?
Yeah. I don't know. To me, it's just shocking as hell. But it's just,
I don't know what's wrong with old Jell-O shots.
Right?
Jell-O shots, you know.
So, but basically, the article I'm reading says quicker high. To think it's going to last longer. It's more intense. Dr. Dan Kwan from Maricopa Medical Center in Arizona It's not isolated to any school, any city, any financial area. When we heard about the kids getting drunk these days, we thought no way. So we hit up experts to find if there's an urban legend, or if or if it's legit. And it turned out that it is legitimate. It's absorbed directly into the bloodstream. There's no barrier, no stomach acid to prevent it. I would expect it to absorb pretty quick as well because of its vascular structure. Quan told CBS Channel 5 in Arizona. It's definitely not just for girls. Guys will also use it, and they'll insert it into their rectums. And I've had enough with that article because that's just...
Yeah, I'll stick to just drinking booze straight out of the bottle. Thank you very much.
Booze, just give me the booze out of the bottle, out of the can, and Holly doesn't sound like she's doing anything.
All right, well, if Holly's still with us, what's the latest with Rick Perry? Everybody's aware of his little gaffe, but we might as well touch on it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd just like to say two things about that last part. Number one, people were doing stupid stuff when we were young, too. They've talked about it. I mean, we had the same similar kinds of articles when I was a kid. Probably when you guys were a kid, too. They just didn't put it in the newspaper. And secondly, man, I'm glad I was a good kid. So those two things aside, the third thing I want to say is I can't remember.
That's a good way to change the subject.
Yeah, no,
that's great.
That's my second mockery of Rick Perry. He was naming off the 3 government agencies he liked to chop, and just basically forgot what the third one was going to be. God bless Rick Perry. Just God bless him.
From your home governor or your home state.
Yeah, well, the Republican debate this year is just a hot mess.
I love this. So, commerce, education, and what's the third one? Commerce.
EPA? No, not the
commerce. No, I said that already.
And then, of course, at the very end, he just says, "Oops." That just sold it. Oops.
That's the Department of Oops.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the Oops department should probably be cut.
And then, of course, last night on last night's debate, which for those of you that might be listening to this podcast in the future, there was a debate on Saturday evening, November 12th. And, of course, they had to make comments about it during the debate itself, and it was a little bit of a high point of last night's debate.
Yeah, I don't know. I just think it's been kind of embarrassing, especially for this year. The Republican debate has just been a mess. I mean, it's a year in which they really need to put their best foot forward. 80% on the last election is a pretty embarrassing margin to get crushed by, and then you bring these jokers to the forefront. I just think that's pitiful.
Well, you know what this is all about? This is about ratings. And this is being discussed on the No Agenda Show at noagendashow.com. And also being discussed on the No Agenda News Network, of which we are a producer, noagendanewsnetwork.com. Adam Curry specifically has mentioned that it's ratings. These Republican debates have been getting huge numbers. So whether it's a zoo, a circus, or entertainment television...
Oh, sure, it's really entertaining, but you spend a lot of money on your presidential campaign, and, I do believe that the Democrats totally set Dean up when he did his, all the way to Texas, rawr, yelling thing, and I'm not going to say that this was a setup, but I am going to say if you're trying to become president, this isn't the right kind of press. And I know that they say no press is bad press, but I believe there's a difference between no words and words, too.
And Fred's speechless.
Oh yeah, right. Oh, yeah. No. I just don't know how these people can say some of the things they say on national television, and then when they're questioned about it by the press, well, I didn't mean that. Well, you said it in front of 800 million people that are watching you, and we're gonna hold you to it. And you can't hold me to it. I didn't mean it. Well, it's mind-boggling. It's boggled the mind how these people get away with this.
I honestly think that we were better off up until only 2 or 3 presidential election cycles when these debates really got out of hand like this, to where we need 20 debates over the course of the primary season. Go back to the old days, like with the Kennedy-Nixon debate. Okay, there was 1 debate. Even going back to Reagan and Carter, maybe there were two debates, or there was a presidential debate and then a vice presidential debate. We don't need these 20 debates just in the primary system. Then they've already decided on the schedule for the presidential debates between the Republican and Democratic eventual nominees. And then also there's going to be one vice presidential debate. So my personal opinion is, I think just like with the vice presidential debate, with where there's going to be one, why not just have, one or two debates during the primary season, then maybe one debate as a presidential debate, and then one vice presidential debate. This is just going on forever.
And that makes a lot of sense, because you got a lot of misinformation being passed that people just don't have the time to check out.
No, you're right. You almost have to watch each and every one of these debates, because it's like a soap opera. They all tie into each other. And if you miss one, you're missing one of the episodes, and you're going to be lost.
But it's more than the debate. Somebody says something, and it goes viral on the internet. Somebody says something, makes a misinformation piece, and he can't get it back. That's why, that's why to plug something in the future. That's why we're creating our own political show, Viewpoint, which is going to try and straighten a lot of this stuff out.
We'll go back to Howard Dean. The infamous, rah, screaming of Howard Dean.
Well, you guys, you have already got the picture here. I was about to say, I'm sure there's some disappointed people here. You know what? You know something? If you had told us 1 year ago that we were going to come in third in Iowa, we would have given anything for that. And you know something? Not only are we going to New Hampshire, Tom Larkin, we're going to South Carolina and Oklahoma and Arizona and North Dakota and New Mexico. We're going to California and Texas and New York. We're going to South Dakota and Oregon and Washington and Michigan. And then we're going to Washington, D.C. to take back the White House. We will not give up.
You talk about being crucified by the media. He was crucified by the media. You listen to that entire clip. What had happened is they took the live feed from his microphone, and all you heard was Howard Dean going, rah. They edited out, or didn't edit in the feed, of all of the extensive background noise that there was. Howard Dean was trying, and I guess I'm defending Howard Dean, but yet,
That's okay.
So I'm not specifically trying to defend Howard Dean, but yeah, I'm just bringing out a point. But yeah, Howard Dean was just yelling to get over the crowd noise, but the media, in the manipulation of the audio, did this edit to where all you heard was his roar, and they edited, or not edited in, is a better way to put it, the crowd noise that he was just yelling over, and that killed his campaign.
Well, and I just wonder,
shit like that does happen.
Yeah, it is. Yep.
And you're talking about being the live feed from his microphone. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I feel like, as you said, if you watch that clip, I mean, I do feel like he was set up a little bit, and I feel like he was saying something.
They the feed from his mic, and he was just yelling to talk over the crowd noise.
Yeah, exactly. I'm with you. But I think the setups do happen, and I don't necessarily believe this was a setup. I think this was just a case of, I think there have been a lot of debates, and I don't think all of these people have that much to say together anymore. I mean, they're not even close to a front runner situation right now.
No, it's 3 or 4. I'll be honest with you. After even watching last night's debate, and I personally I'm not in a position now for myself or for BaseNet to endorse anybody, but I am not a longtime fan of Newt Gingrich. I'll say that up front. But Newt Gingrich is coming on strong, and you know what? In last night's debate, he actually kind of impressed me. And 2 debates in a row now, they said that he's really pulling some good numbers. So look out. You have people like Newt all of a sudden sneaking up as well. So There's no front runner.
See, part of the problem.
Apparently, people who are voting for Newt Gingrich have all kinds of deja vu about how they felt about him 10 minutes ago. But that's the way these elections happen, and that's why they're interesting to watch, even if you're not interested in the subject matter.
See, part of the problem, though, with the press that they take and they create a lot of misinformation as well. They take and they leave out certain bits of information, and when you go and you check and you find out and do your own research, you find out how much they actually leave out. And that's why, again, you have to be very careful when you start endorsing a candidate personally, or in our case for the company. You have to make sure that the person you endorse, that you have all the facts on these people, because it isn't what they make it to be. They endorse somebody at the press, they're going to back that guy 100% no matter what happens.
That's right.
Well, and it's interesting too. I think you're absolutely right about that. And the interesting thing about this day and age, and I'm not saying that I think maybe it's been throughout the years that the younger generation has had more access to more information because they're more savvy about whatever the current technological disruption is. But those of us who have access to the internet have access to truth. You can find unbiased websites. You can find unbiased proof and facts and video. I mean, C-SPAN's 24 hours, and now we can get it directly from our computer. There's no excuse for us to be uneducated voters in this day and age.
No, and we're us at BaseNet are the perfect example, or specifically as we see it right here. This is certainly an unbiased program. We'll throw anybody under the bus. As anybody that has been listening to this show since episode 9 back in September, when we came back on the air in our new reformatted program, knows that we'll throw anybody under the bus, as does No Agenda. Won't endorse anybody. They'll throw anybody under the bus, but yet they'll praise anybody too if the person deserves praise.
We'll even throw ourselves under the bus.
Absolutely, that is true media. That new media. That is true new media, where you're going to give an unbiased opinion and you're just going to discuss the facts.
And people have to understand that you have to learn what the facts are, because you can't go around by what the press tells you, your friends tell you. Like Holly said, go in and look. There's good information and bad information. There's a lot of bad information up on play. And I still have a question. Maybe Holly can answer. Ed can't. When did YouTube become a reliable resource reference?
Yeah, I would argue that very few people rely on me as a resource reference.
There are people that swear by YouTube. It was on YouTube. I saw it. It has to be true. It's never been a reliable resource reference. And I'm sorry, YouTube guys. We love you. We're up on your site, but you can get the good and the bad, and they claim, and a lot of these websites and a lot of these videos claim to be quantified, and they're not. A lot of it's just junk. A lot of it's junk.
Well, but it's in the eyes of the beholder. As you said, we're on YouTube. You folks could follow us in case you aren't already. YouTube.com/BaseNet Network is where we're at YouTube. And I'm the first to admit we just don't plug it that particular site enough. So again, it's YouTube.com/BaseNet Network. And almost anything that we've ever done is up on there. It's in the eyes of the beholder as if you have to do your own research. No different than cable television. Would you hold, here I am going to pick on them again, would you hold True TV in the same light that you would hold a CNN or a Fox News channel or an MSNBC? And I'll name all three of those so that I'm not picking on one in particular. No, you won't. And it's the same thing with YouTube. We're on YouTube, okay. Do people need to 100% believe what they hear on As We See It or BaseNet? Absolutely not. Do they need to believe the other crap that's on YouTube? No. So it is in the eyes of the beholder.
But the difference is that True TV claims to be what it is. It's an entertainment network.
Absolutely.
They don't. YouTube does, and it claims to be, but I've heard so many people talking about so much stuff, swearing by YouTube.
Well, again,
sorry, guys, I gotta stop this right here. Don't go calling YouTube one big collective like they're a news network.
No, see, that's where I was just gonna go. I was just gonna defend them. I was gonna say.
Let me try. I'm sorry, I interrupted you guys, and I'm
because I was gonna dispute it.
Yeah, but I'm with you then. I'm sorry, Ed. I didn't mean to
Not
do
a
that.
news network. Never was.
But I hadn't said anything in a while. I felt I should come crashing in like a bull or something. But like the thing about YouTube is it's a collective for people like us, and each video channel owned by each individual person can be held responsible or not held responsible, and you can display any amount of truth. But I think it's important that forums like YouTube exist because it is a ratings game on national television right now, more so than ever because of all the other options that are out there. And they are fighting for a viewpoint. They are becoming, that's why we invented the term pundits, because pundits represent a certain viewpoint and represent the thing that the people who watch them want to hear. If you go onto YouTube, you can find anybody's opinion.
Find anything you want. That's why I was saying that it's all in the eyes of the beholder, and we have to say that YouTube is owned by Google, and I'm willing to go out on a limb and say that 90% of the average internet user is not even aware of the fact that YouTube is owned by Google because there's no Google branding on YouTube. So there's another thing. It's not YouTube saying this is Google's stance. This is how Google feels about all of these issues. No, they bought YouTube as YouTube currently is. Google has not changed much with it in the 4 years or whatever it is since they bought it. They left it as it was. It's just users putting things up there, and it's these individuals' opinions.
That's it.
So sorry we ganged up on you, Fred, but me and Holly both didn't agree with you.
Oh, and that's fine. That's what it's all about. Like we said, we'll throw anybody under the bus, even ourselves.
I mean, just talking about people really stepping out and sharing their own opinion, having their own voice, I'd like to take a second just to mention, we talked about Bank of America and we talked about our feelings on the fee, and it looks like credit unions reported a huge surge. I mean, like 800%.
More people have followed me, huh?
Yeah, exactly. They said, hey, let's go to a credit union. And, Susie Orman and other major financial advisors have been saying this for years, but almost
nobody listened.
Exactly. And it took someone...
Not until it was said on our show. There you go.
No, we'll take the credit for it. Yes, credit unions last month, the month of October, had their biggest increase in new accounts in the history of credit unions, however long that is.
Right. People also have to remember banks cannot charge you charges like that without notifying you in writing, so don't worry about them automatically just doing it on their own.
No, and that's why even Bank of America, when they were going to charge the $5 surcharge on debit cards, that wasn't even going to take place until spring of 2012. They did let the cat out of the hat almost 6 months ahead of time. So in their defense, and this is one of the only times I'll defend them, is they were telling people 6 months in advance or so, hey, we're going to be doing this next spring. So, okay, I guess they made an honest attempt, but certainly didn't work out.
And the rest of us said, no, you're not.
Right. Okay, so I guess after several weeks of discussing it, that probably just about wraps up our little Bank of America fiasco here that we've been covering. So, as promised, today we have another exciting adventure of Holly and the Lobster Tales and some little-known facts. We have Holly Hurley and Larry the Lobster Marks. Go ahead, guys. What kind of tales do you have for us this week?
Okay. Well, I found some interesting stuff, and the first one I found is about a circular staircase in the fire stations. The reason firehouses have circular staircases is from the days when the engines were pulled by horses. The horses were stabled on the ground floor, and they once figured out how to walk up straight staircases.
Well, I think I think that would be kind of creepy, right? You wake up and you got like horse drool on your face, or the first time that happened, I wonder if this was like a common thing that happened all the time, or if the first time it happened, the guy was like, whoa, we got to get a spiral staircase in here. Like, who's the genius that came up with this?
I have no idea.
That just seems a little bit crazy. I don't know. But I guess, I guess also horses running towards a fire also seems a little counterintuitive to me anyway. I guess I'm glad we don't have to do it that way anymore.
Of course, there's one problem. Once the horse has gotten up the stairs, how do you get the horse back down?
I don't know. I mean, you told me originally, a while back that you can lead a cow upstairs, but the cows won't go back downstairs. So then, if you think about that in the case of a horse, I think horses can go downstairs. I had horses as a kid. I think it's just a very careful procedure.
Yeah, that's true.
Nice. What else you got for me, Larry?
Okay, and the next one is about the lifespan of a Major League Baseball, which is 7 pitches.
What a waste.
I know. Well, that probably explains why they have this huge bag of baseballs, usually, over by the catcher.
Well, and doesn't that make you wonder, though, is it 7 pitches based on how they're thrown or 7 pitches based on how often they're hit? Because I could see how hitting would be traumatic for a baseball, but I don't really see how, traveling through the air and being caught can be traumatic for a baseball,
Yeah. I don't know. It must, well, all I can say is that somehow, between the pitcher,
and the belly itcher.
Between the pitcher, throwing it towards the batter, and then, the batter hitting it, that must have something to do with, shortening the life of the baseball.
I guess
it could also be heat from friction, hitting the leather of the gloves, hitting the wood of the bat, anything like that too.
I guess so. It still sounds pretty crazy to me. I don't know. It seems like a lot of trauma for something. I mean, you'd think by now they've done all this engineering. We went to the Louisville Slugger, the place where they build the bats, on our vacation this summer. John and I did before I came to school. And I remember thinking, wow, wooden bats. Because, there are other options now that last longer. But, home run hitters just swear by these wooden bats. And there's been surprisingly little technology. I mean, even now the machine that they use, even though it can make a bat every few seconds, it still only makes one bat at a time. They're that concerned with the size and shape and feel of the bat. And I wonder, as far as soccer is concerned, there's been loads of technology. There have been technological advances in cleats. They change the ball every year. They genetically engineer the turf. But then they say, oh, well, we can't have playback because that's breaking tradition, And then you have baseballs. They only last 7 pitches, in a game where they use hundreds of these things. And you think by now there would have been some advances, but there's always one thing that a sport clings to, and they just won't change the technology of,
Yep.
What else you got for me, Larry?
Okay, and the next one I got for you is elephants are the only animals who can't jump.
I don't believe that. Why can't elephants jump?
I have no idea, an elephant is a rather large animal, and, that could explain it.
I guess so, but I don't know. Aren't there other big animals? A hippopotamus can jump, but an elephant can't jump. I've seen giraffes jump, but an elephant can't jump. That just seems crazy.
He may not have any knees. You need knees to jump.
I guess so. Yeah, actually I'm reading a response from the curator of mammals and the elephant trainer at the Rio Grande Zoo in Albuquerque, New Mexico, and he says elephants cannot jump, and he said, it's physiologically impossible because of their weight. And even though they can stand on their back legs and their front legs, none of these are natural activities from them, and they just can't jump. That's just not something they can do. They can pick up 1 foot, they can pick up 2 foot, but they can't pick up all 4.
Okay.
Poor elephants. Well, all right. I know you got one more for me, Larry.
Which is about, postage stamps. Every time you lick a stamp, you consume 1/10 of a calorie.
Well, there are 3,500 calories in a pound, Larry. So how many stamps do you think you have to lick to get heavy?
Hey, no trick questions.
We still got lickable stamps?
Yeah, no, tons of it. The ones if you want to buy 1,000 stamps at a time, you have to buy the lickable kinds. The stickable kinds, they only make in a certain amount of hundreds at a time. It's kind of messed up, actually.
If you want 1,000 stamps, buy 10 rolls.
Well,
true, but nowadays, if you bought 1,000 stamps, that might be an investment that goes unfulfilled, judging by what we've heard about the post office.
Well, the last time I bought,
it's going up a penny in January.
No, you remember they were they thought they were going to have shut down the post office recently. They're being put out of business.
Let's not go back to that show.
The last time I bought stamps, it was like the kind that, you just peel the stamp out of the book and it sticks on automatically. You didn't have to lick it.
Well, that's really nice.
No, there are some stamps out there you still have to lick. Some of your odder denominations they don't sell much of. So, like $2 and $5 stamps that they still have, and some post offices I know still have a lot of the older stock still in their safes, and you can buy them because I've bought a couple of them.
So if you're on a diet, there you go. It's only 1/10 of a calorie or something per stamp, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, a little bit of a stamp and a diet soda, you'll be fine.
So as we wrap up Holly and the Lobster Tales, Holly and Larry, you have anything else, or does that do it for this exciting adventure?
Nope, that just about does it.
I agree.
Okay, then we'll see you next time on the next exciting adventure of Holly and the Lobster Tales. Okay, so from Boston, Massachusetts, on this Sunday, November 13th, 2011, where, yes, I am still sitting in the dark because it's not daylight savings time yet. I'm Ed Jupin.
From Pennsylvania, it's dark out here. I'm Fred Boas.
And from St. Louis, where we've still got some sunlight left, I'm Holly Hurley.
We'll see you next week.